All right, everybody, welcome back to finally episode 10 of the MC Events podcast. As you can see on my screen, we're going to do some of what we did last week. As always, I'm Joey, joined by Gilan.
Hello, I am Gilan.
We're going to be watching Minecraft Mania 2, which happened a few weeks ago. Even though Minecraft Mania 3 happened over the weekend, I didn't have time to edit that one down. So we're going to watch 2, and then I also will, add a little disclaimer on the top comment being what was changed between 2 and 3 that we didn't catch or we already talked about. But the goal of this is to, give our thoughts, opinions, input on what's good about the event so far, what could be improved, and just appreciate how much has already been done so far. Anything you want to add to that, Gilan?
No, that pretty much covers it. That's the point of this whole series.
Yep. So let's start it and hit play, Gilan, in 3, 2, 1. Play. And we are going to be watching again from It's Pickle's perspective. He really has been in a lot of events recently. He also commented on the last one, or if we saw him in Pet, saying that if we ever want to bring him on for an episode, we should do it, which we will likely do in the future.
Yeah. Already liking the look of this lobby.
Mm-hmm.
Like these little boats for each team. It's a very unique look.
They still have the countdown, which is similar to MCC in that lobby, but it's not exact copy or a very similar one. Like it just has the name, it has a crown. I mean, those things are pretty similar regardless, and then it has the countdown. But yeah, the rest of the lobby looks pretty good. It has a nice aesthetic to it that's not overly complicated, but not super simple. I like the different teams boats, so they have a place to stand while they wait for it. It would be nice if there was an easier way to get there, or if the players got teleported there. It looks like they had to just swim to it. And yeah, there are 8 teams in this with 3 players in each team, or are there 4?
I think there might be 4.
But as you can see, they did the alliteration name, so they did it with a fruit and a animal after it. So it made some good names. I particularly like the apricot LAs or the melon mushrooms.
Mm-hmm.
And even the elderberry enderman are pretty fun.
That's a good one, yeah. Actually, I might have been wrong. It might just be 3 people.
It's 3 or 4. We'll see in a second once they get them all together. And I will make sure for sure this time to put who it's organized in the pinned comment and where you can find them for their stuff. But yeah, here's the opening sequence. It's got a nice intro. They're going to play 6 games total. They're trying to be gaining coins, of course. Score will be kept a secret, though, so the event will be more intense. What are your thoughts about that, Gilan?
I think that's might be a cool idea, because I know a lot of people talk about the idea that, like, in the last game especially, I know Block Wars does that, where in the last game you hide the score. I think MCC might have done that at one point.
They only do it for Sands at time for MCC.
Or only for Sands at time, yeah. But it is a great way to keep up suspense. The balance that you're trying to strike is you also don't want to make it so that if someone shows up halfway through the event, they're like, wait, who's winning? Like, how's the game doing? Because that can be a downside. If you join someone's stream halfway through and you're like, wait, are you winning? Are you losing? What's happening? And then they're like asking in chat, and the streamer has to keep telling like what it looks like. Like, that might be a bit confusing.
And then they got teleported. I mean, yeah, it could be confusing if you're trying to catch what's going on. They get teleported into the decision dial. Of course, the alliteration. Players will be voting by putting their bodies in each slice that they want the game to be. Which it's a nice look. It looks like there's 8 games, but they're only playing 6 of them. No, there's a question mark over of one of them. So there's 7 games, but they're only playing 6. And I'm not really going to talk a lot about this voting because it's something that's done a lot. I think it's fine. There's no issues with it. It's easier than voting by like chickens or other things that kind of sometimes add elements of randomness to it. But I do think looking at this decision dial, the space of it could be spruced up a bit.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty small area, but maybe that's part of the look. And there's just a lot of stone, but I mean, we're not builders.
We're not. I can only build medieval style castles and not big ones, little forts like you imagine. The first game we're going to is Racers. Think Ace Race, think Speedrun, think... God, what are all the race games called nowadays going? There's too many names.
Race.
Obviously the most obvious one. And here they have at the start kind of showing the which blocks give what effects. And as well, you're going to notice that the time left doesn't work throughout the event, sadly. I'm guessing that that was something that was working at one point and then broke, but you can't really then take it out. But it will then say, in games that do have time, the timer will be above the hotbar.
Yeah, I do like the simple solution to the tutorial where it's just like, just throw it on a wall and let them read it beforehand. Because, like, I mean, if you look at something like MCC, Block Wars has it too, where it's like the whole, like, everyone's in spectator and it's like a tutorial and it walks through all those things. You know, that's a great thing, and it kind of forces players to watch it, and it can be a great experience, but also it just takes a lot of time.
It is very
So I think
difficult
that it
to
is
please,
important to just like be like, sometimes you can just put a what they're called, like, hologram, like a floating thing in the air, and just have them players look at that like, okay, I get the point, and then move over, or just put stuff in chat and like that.
They
Use your
did both
trident.
of them. The only thing I will say is that the like first three, the jump, speed, and like water or dolphins grace probably, all seem to be very obvious color blocks that would make sense to pay attention to. But then rooted dirt being one to make you fly, for me, it would be kind of hard to pick out the rooted dirt when there's a lot of brown everywhere on this map.
Yeah.
And so Piggles gets off to a pretty quick lead, even though he says in it that he did not know the course at all. And he said it's weird to be playing a race game where he doesn't know the course already, which I thought was an interesting thing to talk about, with the idea that a lot of players study for the event. They prep themselves, they practice, and part of that's usually finding the fastest route in one of these race games. And so when you're actually going into it truly blind, having never seen it, it's kind of it's a very different experience. The other thing I'm going to point out that's really slight, and I don't think it would take a lot of work to change, is you can see the flat world map around the outside of this map.
Yeah.
And I think just going through with the inbuilt commands in Minecraft, just deleting a ton of that ground to make it in the void, would add a little bit to the aesthetic to make it look a little better. What are your impressions of it?
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. I do really like how this map looks. It has this like autumn feel to it. It feels like a little like forest. It reminds me of that one map in Mario Kart with like the weird worms that walk around. That one, yeah.
Also, Piggles complains about not being able to do that trident thing each time. He was just doing it badly.
Yeah.
He gets it later, and his teammates get it as well. But yeah, that's the part where they get the rooted dirt that then gives them elytra to fly. I think there's, a different block that could be used that would kind of show a little better. That's what it is. Right there, it's just a transition from us to skip ahead because, we don't need to watch all 4 laps of this or how many laps it was. But yeah, Piggles finished the race in 3rd. His teammate finished in 2nd. They went real fast, let me tell you. Like, overall, it's a pretty nice and compact map, and I think it has a good theme to it. It feels, feels like a good race map. I think just sprucing up some of the, not even exterior, the non-playable areas, I guess, and just getting rid of that flatland out there would help, and then changing up, a couple of the colors so it's more obvious where you're going and what you're going to use it for. But it seemed like it played well. Gilan, guess what game's 2nd, though?
Race 2.
Hunger Games, Gilan.
Oh, Hunger Games.
Our favorite game to talk about.
We love Hunger Games.
We love it so much. Hunger Games, as we've talked about many times, has the issue of when you die, you're done. You're done. You don't get to play anymore. So how do you make it so that it's still an entertaining experience when players can die really quickly? Some events solve that with like the gulag. Some events solve it with multiple rounds. But it seems like there's just something you need to do to not have it just be standard Hunger Games, where if you're playing on a server, what you would do is just leave after you die and join another round.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same reason why like Sky Wars as a game, like if you've ever played Sky Wars, if you immediately die, you don't wait out the entire game. You just go to the next one. Which I've seen sometimes when people do Sky Wars tournaments, it can be pretty boring.
Yes.
But the solution to that is, the nice thing about Skywars though is that like a game of Skywars lasts like maybe 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're pretty short. The problem with Hunger Games is that it can last a long time, especially if it's like EVNTs, you know, like events with Hunger Games.
MCU, yeah. That was like
the
hours
MCU.
long. And yes, there was the gulag and ways to get back in, but for a lot of players, they were still dead rather quickly, and then just having to watch the rest of it.
Yeah, and being in spectator mode for a long time could be very boring. And I'll even say a lot of times one of the big things in Hunger Games is Hunger Games, even if you're playing, can be very boring because you could just be running around in circles, just like looking at people for a very long time. And then one of the issues is because you have that risk of dying, you are much less likely to fight people, and like it just results in a game of chicken where people are just trying to run away and like go hit and run and then run away and go back and forth.
There's also the RNG from the loot you get, because sometimes you can be fighting a team that's full iron while you do not, and it is very hard to win that.
And yeah, we've talked about how even games that are similar to Hunger Games always have that random loot problem of like when we're talking about Block Wars Sky Zone sometimes has that problem where it's like, yeah, somebody can just, one team can get 3 iron chest plates and they're just immediately much better, and you're just going to lose that fight.
And I like the map aesthetic again here. It's very like, I don't know what word, like floral, like you're in a valley kind of feeling.
Yeah, you're surrounded by these little mountains.
I do think the map, Piggles also says it as well, that the map's very small for 32 players. 8 times 3, 24 players. As real quick, they all run into each other and there's functionally no cover. Like you can only run in straight lines around the edge of the map. And so his team gets cornered by 2 teams and is now just getting cleaned up. And even though Piggles is very good at PvP, he has iron pants compared to those iron, like full iron outfits of the other side.
And they got a diamond sword. So
yeah. So it is a little tough to win it. And there's just nowhere to hide. The only way you'd be to run them into another team, but there's just not time to get there. But yeah, I like the map design. I think what could be done is just kind of expand on the big flowers and make it where there's more cover or places you can go inside so your team could hide a little bit. Or you could also have the map just be bigger by another like 50 blocks on all sides.
And look at this. Piggles is doing our job for us.
Piggles is saying the same thing. He knows what he's talking about. He's been in a few events. But I also I'm gonna make a big point here is that when you're playing an event, it's not always great to say, hey, it should have been done this way instead.
Yeah, maybe wait till afterwards.
Wait till after. You can be like, oh man, we got unlucky with the RNG. That was tough. We just couldn't have anywhere to run. But it's great to just, not cause more stress for the people running the event, because there's nothing they can do to change some of these things that you want to complain about. Again, though, I think Piggles was still constructive about his feedback. He wasn't saying, boo, this sucked. He was saying, like, let's make it bigger. Let's do it again, but more times. But I think those are some of the few ways it could be spruced up. Hunger Games as a game in an event is just very difficult to use at base, like the base version of it, just because you have to balance the RNG and you have to balance what happens if players die really soon.
I do think that with a lot of these games, it's a situation of like when Piggles was talking, he was kind of talking like a tester. And it might be a situation where you need to do more testing. Or it could just be a thing where like you spend a long time making this map and you're like, if I make a bigger map, I have to make more map, and we don't have time to do that, which is also a thing that can happen, and that can always be a problem.
Yes, it's a thing you have to balance all of the things you want to work on, and if that's something you have to, skip on or acknowledge that, hey, we would have done it differently, but we don't have the time, then that's okay too. But I think, just having the game be played multiple rounds, that's probably an easier thing to do versus like building a whole new map that's bigger and more balanced. Guess what game mode we're in next, though, Gilan? Panic.
Parkour.
It's your typical kind of, it's got stages. The only thing different or unique, I'm not actually the only thing. What's unique about this is that the stages kind of decay behind you, which has its pros and cons. It kind of adds a little more urgency to go faster. The thing is, though, that instead of getting then stuck on a jump and being stuck there till the end of the game, you get stuck there until you die. and then you get to watch everyone else finish.
So, how long is this? I haven't seen it yet.
It was
Do you know
15
how long?
minutes, it said.
It's 15 minutes. So let's say you're really bad at parkour, like really, really bad. Like and let's say on stage 1-1.
It's going to be about, I think there's a hard stage on like 3-2 or something. We're going to see Pickles get to it where he struggles for a bit. He's very good at parkour and gets one of the furthest in the event. But other people die much sooner than that. And so we're gonna watch him do a few stages really easily, and then we'll skip ahead at one point. But there will be people who die, I think, on like 3 something, like level 3 stage like 4. And I don't remember if there's a speed bonus or a bonus for getting more points the faster you go. I don't think it said. But they're all clearly trying to go as fast as possible off the gate. Other thing I was gonna mention, Gilan, is we said I said there was gonna be the timer, which I thought there was put in this game, but it's just you don't see it displayed, and so we don't have a timer display. I was also gonna mention that the team and icon on the side stuff, there's no need to have the coins there when you're not gonna be displaying any coins at the moment. I assume. Yeah. I'm guessing, though, that the reason they have it there is because they're going to have it in the future, and that something just broke and made it difficult, which is completely understandable. But my recommendation would be, if you're not going to show coins at all, then take off the 0 and the coin icons over there.
Or replace it with, like, a question mark, or, like, the little fancy thing that, like, flickers, like the flicker script. I forgot what it is with the
because otherwise it looks a little strange if you were to tune in and be like, oh, we're in game 3 and there's still no coins.
Or to a lot of people, it is just like, oh, is the event broken? And that's not always a good look.
Pickles have
I will say
a lot of deaths already.
By the way, I know in the last video we talked about, which you should go watch. People should go watch the last video.
When we watched Pet
Pet Championship. We talked. They had a parkour game, very similar. And we talked about some of the flaws of parkour games in general, which isn't even just an event by event. Like, it isn't just like one event has flaws. I think competitive, I guess you can consider competitive parkour has its flaws, because I think if you look at something like high pixel housing parkour, which is how a lot of people have done parkour, or just parkour maps, like single player maps, the way those are kind of designed is you kind of go in, you do it at your own pace, you make your way through as fast as you want. If you get to a certain point where you are just really stuck, you can just move on to a different map. And it's kind of, a lot of people when they do parkour, it's just like alone, or maybe like if they're doing it with some friends. And as we've talked about, the flaws with like competitive parkour is that because of the wide skill gaps, you just are always going to have some people who are really going to hate it, and you're going to have some people who love it because they're just in this flow state. Like, I would say Pickles probably really likes this, because Pickles is making his way through this pretty easily, is kind of in this flow state, is able to go through it, but other people are not really liking this. And the way this event kind of solved it as well, you just kind of die and you can spectate, so you're not just like feeling like you have to do the same thing over and over again. But it kind of goes back to the Hunger Games idea, where like sometimes just spectating people isn't that fun. It would be nice to basically create something for them to at least be doing, even if they don't get a lot of points from it.
I know the one we talk about is MCC, because they've solved it most recently with having different paths people can take, or bonus paths that are harder than you can take for more points in their new Parkour Warrior. And I like that approach, but I think there's also more that could be done. One of the approaches I've heard, or maybe we theorized, I don't remember where we talked about it, Gilan, is imagine there's like 10 parkour courses, 10 levels with 3 stages each, or 10 stages with 3 levels each, whatever you way say it. And they're in different, one is the easiest, 10's the hardest, and your team has to just finish it as fast as possible, but only one team member has to finish each. So then that way you can kind of split up and have your best parkour player do the harder ones, and your weaker ones do some of the easier ones, and give everyone the opportunity to play. But that's also that's hard to implement as well, and it's different than of what's gonna of how best our team's going to be able to, you know, say who's working on what, because you're going to have the issue of, you know, if your weakest player is unable to finish, they're going to feel really bad. But the other option is you have it where 2 people need to finish each one or something like that. The other thing I've seen is some of the endless parkour ideas. Not truly endless, but like pretty endless, where it's just full distance and it's easier difficulty, I would say, than like getting possibly hard. But you can then also give players the opportunity to skip individual like stages or levels that they just aren't good at. I think there's a lot that can still be done with parkour in Minecraft, and also my internet dipped out, and so I've been talking by myself without Gilan. Gilan, I lost your points right there. You can say that again real quick.
Okay. One thing to think about with parkour, though, one last thing before we move on, is if you are creating a competitive event, like a purely competitive event, you might actually want to have that style parkour because you're kind of under the assumption that everyone there is sufficient at it, and like everyone there can complete it, and then it's really a question of like, okay, everyone here could complete this, but who can complete it the faster, like the fastest?
Yes.
And if you're in that case, something like this would make sense.
Yes.
And you can start kind of pushing those limits a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
I think for content creators, you're always going to deal with people who aren't as good at parkour.
Yes, and parkour.
And I don't mean aren't as good. I just mean like are not amazing at it. Sometimes you make it really difficult.
Yes.
Anyway, what is this game?
This is called PvP Rumble. There's like 4 little PvP arenas they fight in. This first one being Trident, where they have a Riptide Trident and a Loyalty Trident. So you get to use both of them to do damage, because if you Riptide into somebody, it does damage. And if you hit somebody with your Trident throwing, it also does damage, obviously. And so they'll play this one for 2 minutes, and then they'll go to a different arena, play again, and so on.
So I do really like the concept of this. I always love when people use different mechanics in Minecraft. One thing I do think would be helpful is give people glowing, so you can see them a bit easier. Because I don't think this is the kind of game where you're supposed to be hiding. You're supposed to be fighting.
You're not. Yeah.
So making sure people can be easily seen, because especially in water, it's really dark. I realize, you know, it's different as a viewer, but also making sure that viewers can kind of see like, oh, there's someone over there, and players can see out of the corner of their eye where people are.
The other thing I was gonna...
And as we get a nice little exploiting here by Pickle's trying to stay in the seaweed.
It'll stay in the seaweed, can kind of keep life, or just they keep moving. It's very hard to hit somebody when they're doing this. The other thing I was going to mention is that 8 stake is a lot, and having 8 stake, the high regen health means it's going to be very hard to kill somebody, especially when it's only 2 minutes. Obviously the border does bring people in, but there's even you can go vertically as well, so there's just a lot of space to kind of stay alive. And it's very hard to pin someone down. So if I had any recommendations, it's like if you could give the Riptide Tridents a cooldown, that would probably be helpful. And if you could also make some more narrow areas to fight in that aren't just wide open.
Yeah.
Because I don't think Pickles did any damage there at the end, because he could just not hit anybody.
Yeah, I think it's a situation where we've talked about the idea of like trying to make it like a dogfighting style game in Minecraft. I mean, Block Wars had a little like Elytra
Skybolt, during party.
Yeah, Skybolt. But it was just always a problem, especially if you had like 20. You always had this problem where it's really hard because Minecraft isn't really meant for people to be hitting each other midair. Your hitbox gets really small when you're flying purposely, so you could fit through small spaces. So that's always kind of
that's a tough one to deal with.
Those style games are, it's hard to do that. But as you said, making it a smaller area would definitely be more helpful. But also mention the fact that, you know, how much food is, how helpful food is.
Speaking of Skybolt.
Speaking of which, but I do like the fact that they have swords, because I think that makes it much easier.
And I think they only have 16 fireworks as well, so it's not just an infinite, which is very good to not have it be infinite. But it is also 1 life during each of these rounds for all the players, and so I think it plays pretty well for the idea of the game mode. to have this quick and dirty PvP where everyone fights everyone with different styles. I think all that needs spruced up is a little bit of the map design and then the decisions about items.
Yeah, I do think one thing is that could help because it's such a short period of time. Like, if you're theoretically making a game where you have these little short fights, it might be a good idea to actually remove the concept of food at all and basically make it so players always have full hunger, but remove the ability to regen. Like, have it like because I know, like, basically remove regen or only have, like, give them like one golden apple or something, or a very small amount. Because I think with this game, you see he's been Pickles has been damaged multiple times, like at least maybe 4 or 5 hearts of damage, but it right now is currently at full because it's just very easy to heal back up. But that results in the problem, especially in a game like this. You could, oh look, you just run away and you can heal and then come back and keep fighting. And that works in something like Hunger Games, where you want it to be a long-term game. But if it's a quick thing, you kind of want to get people to die faster.
Yes. The other thing I'm noticing about this map design is you kind of all get pushed into this tower, but there's not even time to fight each other at like the different layers because there's 10 seconds left, so the game's just going to end without anyone. They're going to fight who's on their level, but they're not going to move up or down, which is okay. Not everyone has to die in the game mode, but it's just recognizing that because the tower was built that way, that's what you're incentivizing. But I think that one seemed pretty good. I agree with you, just figuring out the have steak, have food, or whatever region you're going to have, but probably less than like 8 steak, which is a lot for 2 minutes.
Ooh, this map looks fun.
It reminds me of the Crystal PvP maps, even though it's not bad or Obsidian. And then it's just, yeah, it's typical sword, bow, and they have a chest plate as well, so they do have some armor. Immediately, I like watched this as I edited it down, but I didn't like notice everything when I did that. And immediately what I'm noticing is that if you're a team like this, you get pushed from one side, you then go down while you're going to get flanked by 2 teams. Like there's no safety if you get rushed falling down into this pit because it's too hard to get back up when you can get shot from any side. I don't have immediate ideas for how to fix that. I mean, it could also be a sense if you want that, let the teams who are most aggressive get the most benefit. But it could also probably feel bad if you are a weak PvP team. And as well, there's like a functionally no cover. I wouldn't say there's no cover at all, but it's very hard to use. And then my internet's dipped again, so we gotta wait for Gilan to dip back in, but it's okay. I'll keep us in the loop. I'm also noticing that I don't think there's any reason to really go in the middle. I mean, they're going to be pushed there by the border at the end, but it seems like there's no tactical advantage by being in the middle. You're actually in a pit, so like it forces you, if you go to the middle early, you're stuck, but if you then fight around on the outside, you're going to stay in these rings and then finally get pushed in the middle. It seems like just something else could be added to the middle to give somebody like a little bit of cover if they do get there first. Did Pickles just use a fire tick jump to get up higher? Or am I imagining?
Possibly. It might have been only 1 block.
It might have been.
Again, we're seeing another situation where Pickles is abusing the very quick food regen to go from basically being at half a heart to now being able to get like 2 kills.
2 kills right there at the end. And it's a case of steak is just so strong. And if that's like the goal is like players can kill somebody and then get to full health back, then that's okay. But I think in a game that's only 2 minutes, it doesn't really make sense to be able to do that 8 times. Because then you could be able to kill the whole lobby if you did it one team at a time. And then I skipped completely ahead. We didn't go back to the decision dial to what's called hide and go hunt, like Hunt from Block Wars. Except how it works is players are all players from 7 teams all go hide, and then there's 8 rounds with one of the last team hunting them for the round.
I do like it feels like a parkour tag map. Which I will say, out of when it comes to just like Minecraft map design, I love parkour tag maps.
Yes.
I've also loved when Noxcrew talk about creating them because they've talked about how meticulous they are about it. And I do really like the overlapping nature of this map, and it feels like there's just so many paths and interesting little nooks and crannies to go into. So I always find these style maps very interesting. I feel like they did a pretty good job with this one.
Yes.
There isn't a lot of empty space. There's a lot of different areas to go, and it feels like there's a lot of different paths to jump through. Which for a game like this makes a lot of sense.
Yes. And there's only 60 seconds each time they get a hide, and I think it also introduces a cool meta within the rounds, because like if you see that, oh, I know where red team was hiding and they survive, all 3 people survived, well, you're gonna then hunt against them next, and you'd be like, I know they're going there, so I'm gonna go hunt them down. So it forces you to keep using new strategies. Whereas if you think of like MCC's parkour tag, often the hunter can just keep using the same strategy of just, same route to start, and the hiders use the same route. Whereas there's kind of evolving throughout.
I did like the fact that they got to look around before the match starts. It's a great allow them to run around, find some hiding spots. And I do like this concept of each team getting a round to hunt everyone else.
I think what I do find, though, it happens a lot is, since you're 3 players hunting 21, a lot of times players just don't get found, and so they sit there for 60 seconds.
Which in the grand scheme of things isn't actually that bad
not long
compared to some other block hunts. Sometimes people wait around for 30 minutes.
I'm pretty sure people are one hit because everybody's dying, but we're gonna watch Piggles hunt in a little bit, and he very much struggles, which I think is the case, especially if you're hunting the later rounds and you spend all of your hiding rounds standing still. You don't get the same familiarity with the maps that other people do who've been running around a bunch. Because you can see all the hunters right now, so why not jump around a bit? I also think this game mode's slightly hurt by not having the timer. You can tell from the points, how many points you're getting, how much time there is left, but it doesn't quite give the same effect as seeing the countdown. And Piggles there got sniped because the person gave away his hiding spot. But I think it's a good take on a hide and seek game by making it fast paced and giving still like a fair advantage for all the teams. Oh, look at that. Look at that hiding spot. I don't know how he got up here. I think he fell in from the roof, it looks like. But it looks like a very good one, where if you keep your eyes and know how the players can see, you should stay hidden the whole time. But yeah, I don't really have any notes of this one. I mean, if the timer could be implemented, I think that'd be helpful. And then I think also you're just gonna have to continually refresh the maps a bit, which can be very difficult because they're very overlapping, as you said. You want everything to flow nicely so that you can run away. Oh, the other thing I could see potentially is just showing like who's alive still from what teams is like a boss bar.
Yeah.
Because you might be like,
at least a number.
Just the number, yeah. You don't need the player names, but just know like which team is currently, like, if you think they're winning right now, you think one team's doing particularly good, and you're like, oh, all the pink team's still alive. Well, let's try to get them instead of somebody else.
Yeah, it's a situation where you actually might want to encourage targeting.
I also know that they turn off name tags for the hiders. Great, obviously makes sense. But I think what you could do as well is give them all leather armor in their team color. So then the hunters know like which team they're going after. I mean, you'd say like, oh, we don't want targeting, but like in a game like this, they're literally chasing everyone. And at times they're gonna have to pick like, oh, do I chase the orange person or chase the blue person? And you should let them have the opportunity to choose, chase who's ever the best option.
Yeah, I agree. Having a helmet, like even just a leather helmet that has their team color, would be a good idea.
But yeah, Pickles doesn't get anyone, I think. But Messio on his team absolutely pops off. Because the strategy in this is, even though you see somebody running far away, you should not just chase them because you're so far away that you're gonna just be wasting time. But yeah, solid game. We see one more round with the cherry cats hunting. And then we move on to the 6th game. Or no, I skipped past it, sorry. Sorry, we don't actually watch the last one. We move on to the 6th game now, which is Precision Build, I think it's called. Precision build, yeah. The idea is that within their little temple next to them, there's the build they have to create on this platform that they're standing on. And each player gets only a few blocks. They don't get the entire block set each. And so they have to, place it together. And there's also the button there to like lock it in when they think they have it. Oh, and you can drop blocks apparently to your teammates. Somebody's reminding you. Oh, the blocks will drop on the floor. Okay. No, it gave them to their inventory. Maybe I just lied about everything of how it worked. You'll need to split them. So right now it should be that Piggles has all the blocks and he needs to give them to everybody else.
Is that an intended feature? Or
yes, they were saying it in chat.
Well, I meant, is that an intended feature for game design, or like a thing where they can only give one player at a time all the blocks, and it was too complicated to give multiple people them?
We don't know.
Oh, okay.
In my eyes, what would make most sense is to kind of like give, like, Piggles could have all the dirt, somebody else could have like, or Piggles have half the dirt, somebody else could have some of the other stuff. But that does get really complicated.
It'd be interesting to make it so like they can't drop them either, so that you're forced to basically have certain people focus on certain areas.
I also like the idea of the button to say like when it's done, because so often you see teams in like Build Mart or Construction and Block Wars where they think they finished it and then they go, I don't know what's wrong. Like they're like, I got it right, and the build's not done, and they just like, I don't see it's right. But instead you have to go hit the button and be like, lock it in, and you go, oh, it's not right. You're kind of more, I don't know, you believe it more because the automatic system didn't like fail you. If that makes sense. You're expecting it with like to either give you a yes or no when you put it down or you hit the button. Whereas when it's an automatic system, you're just like, oh, we're done. And often that's not the case because they get it wrong. I don't see what they have wrong right here, which is the struggle.
They're right there on the side. That's supposed to be 2 blocks. They have it as 3.
Yeah, there's another block next to the bed on that right side.
Yeah, they're forgetting the chest. And then there's a little 2. I realize, like the stress of being in it, but it always annoys me. I can't watch people play Build Mart because like for some reason I'm very good at the games where like I'm looking at one thing and I copy it over. Like, I'm very good at that kind of thing. And it just flusters me all the time. So yes. I have to try to not watch it.
It is really annoying to see that. And I think this is also a case where they're not patterned. They're not like very patterned to see what the where things go, that it'd be very easy to get messed up and just not see it for a while. I was going to mention as well, this game does have time left displayed. I don't think we're going to watch all 15 minutes. I'm pretty sure I didn't put that in, that we watch only a couple more. But I think it like does kind of what Build Mart and Construction are meant to do, like give this, quick placing. It's not building, it's pattern recognition and like knowing where things go. So more Construction than Build Mart.
Yeah, because we've talked about the fact, I guess, I don't know if we've talked about the fact that you can't really have an actual building game because it's all subjective. It would be more of a building competition. And you can't really have that in a point-based event.
I mean,
so the closest you get is pattern recognition, like copying.
I'm going to throw this idea out there because I do think it's a real building game. It's an idea we've talked about, Gilan, where it's like defends the wall or something. Defend the block. Where a TNT is going to drop on your like little block and you're told where it's going to drop, and you get a certain number of blocks to place down and a certain amount of time to place it down to then keep it alive. And it will need to be like, not just make a box around it, because the TNT is going to drop at very specific times. And
you have limited resources, and maybe if you use less, you get more points.
Yep.
And it's also a thing where, it's going to drop in 30 seconds. So you have to build it quickly. And of course, it's a team game, so you have to like make sure everyone's on the same page.
Yep.
Not just placing random stuff.
So anyone want to take that idea, you're welcome to have it. I'd love to see it get played and how it actually go. I'd love to also test it. So if you ever do make that, hit me up on Twitter or Discord. We're skipping ahead to the end of this game. I think it plays pretty well. The only thing I would recommend is a better way to split the blocks among the teammates. I think if they like all spawned in a chest and then players could pull it out of there instead of having it just given to one player, would probably be better.
Oh, they were so close.
They were right there. Somebody saying this is such a bad game. They had a sad time. looks like if those pillars in the middle are getting all the way to the top, they are very far from it.
It's not like a Block Wars Construction where it's a race to finish. It's a race to get as many done.
The thing I would recommend, though, if that's the goal, is to finish all those, make them a little easier, probably. Like, have there be easier patterns. I think just making it more patterns versus the, like that first one showing the dirt within such an irregular pattern was hard to then put down under pressure. But having it be, you know, a little more rectangular, a little more obvious in the pattern would make it easier to do. And then here's where they show all the points on the right side. Green in first, no, green was in first, yeah, and then saying second or third between cherry and grape. And I do believe there's finale game. Piggles does not stick around to watch it, so I sadly do not have the footage. But if that means we can come back when it's time for Minecraft Mania 4, because we're not going to rewatch 3 if it was just this close. But we can come back for 4 or 5 and watch from another perspective and see what our see how it is. But Gilan, what's your overall thoughts and takeaways from this event?
I really liked the kind of unique games. It wasn't like a situation. I know I've seen a lot of events where it's like, oh, that's just that MCC game again. I liked how I did like their style of race map. It reminded me of like a Pandora's box, kind of like more compact. I really liked the little like quick PvP games, even though like they had some they had some flaws, but I mean everything has flaws. It felt very fun. Oh, do we do the finale?
We have a little bit of it, but Piggles leaves because I think he had to then go play in another event.
What is it, like crossbow?
It looks like a crossbow or bow game, similar to Coliseum of PB.
Yeah, Coliseum. Yeah.
We'll check it in another time, but yeah, I'd say I agree with your overalls. Like, I think it has some fun, unique concept for games. I think it's recognizing what other events already have and being like, how can we do it differently? How can we like take the best of that and to put our own twist on it? I think it's just, you know, polishing up a few things, tweaking a few things, and from there it would likely be a very high quality event really quickly.
Yeah, I like the textures. They have a nice little texture pack. It reminds me of kind of like old Block Wars kind of textures. And I will say, like, a lot of the scoreboard design is kind of nice. Even though it was broken for a bit, it does look good. Yeah. And I like the idea of hiding the scores. That made it kind of interesting. Yeah.
But I think we finish up right now. Yep, video clip ended. But yeah, that's our thoughts about Minecraft Mania 2. As always, we want to say it's just we appreciate the people who put it on. They're awesome. I'm going to make sure to put them in the pinned comment on this video to give them the shout out if you want to follow them on Twitter or join their Discord or just stay tuned for the next one that happens. As always, if they want to, we got a great response from the people who ran Pet Championship last week. And so if the people from Minecraft Mania want to reach out too, and just if you want to take your advice, you don't have to. We're not saying we're the complete experts, but we're just offering it if it's there for you. We respect all the work you've put in because it looks like it's a pretty cool event.
Yeah.
And Gilan, next week, I think we're going to watch one more event. I haven't picked yet. We have either Creator Conquest, Pixel Playoffs, or Minecraft Mayhem. So if you watch all the end, pick in the comments which one it is. And then you'll find out which we'll be watching. And I think the week after, we'll try to get our good pal Piggles on the podcast to talk to him. But that is it for today. Gilan, say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.